For more, Jennifer Turner, director of the China Environment Forum at the Wilson Center, joins us here back on set. Good to see you. These are big changes. We were talking earlier, since 1989. This is a very big update. Explain to us what that means for our viewers from 89 to where we are today. Well,
this basic environmental law is meant to create the foundation for other laws in China on environmental enforcement. And the 1989 law, it was just a beginning. It just said, yeah, we're having an Environmental Protection Bureau, you can have environmental impact assessments, the people, the country should have clean air, but it was very vague. And now what we see in this most updated version is that the Ministry of Environmental Protection in China has been given some teeth. It's also saying that, trying to encourage the courts to actually take environmental cases and even allowing NGOs in China to bring public interest law cases.
China has done a fairly significant job of putting this on the record, whether it's in the media. They've been very open about this serious, and you're looking at some of the pictures of some of the pollution in China that's happening right now. Is this going to work? I mean, it's not just the government we're talking about. It needs private companies to come in there and also do the work of cleaning things up, does it not?
Well, you actually need to have, well, when you say private companies, a lot of companies in China are owned by the government. You actually need a lot of these companies to simply start complying with the existing air and water.
Because there's already a lot of laws on the plate.
There's a lot of laws, but in the past, local officials, they've never really, again, you've heard the story again and again, don't really have the incentive to enforce the regulations. And before, the Ministry of Environmental Protection was really powerless to enforce this.
How big of a change is, I mean, there's a lot of talk, these are the biggest changes, 25 years, 1989. Will they work, I guess, in your opinion, is the question.
I think this is a breakthrough. The fact that there's the potential for stronger enforcement, environmental impact assessments. In the past, local governments could just kind of rubber stamp, then you could put your company up and, factory pollute, whatever. But now, the Ministry of Environmental Protection and provincial officials can deny an environmental impact assessment that if your county or city is exceeding the pollution emission standards, you can get no approval for environmental impact assessment. That sends a strong message to local governments, you can't build, you can't expand.
There are two big points I want to bring up here, and I want to get your opinion on this. One is the cap on fines. So they're saying essentially, and please explain if I'm saying this vaguely, there was a cap on fines, and now there will be no cap on fines.
Yeah.
How does that impact?
Well, businesses before simply said, I can just pay the fine and continue polluting. Now it's expensive. There are going to be daily fines that will keep accruing.
How much more are the new fines compared to the old fines?
Sky's the limit. I mean, there's no limit now. And so businesses are going to get the message that, whoa, it's going to be more important for me not to pollute, because once I start polluting, and day by day, it's a very similar tool hammer that we have in the United States, and it's been fairly successful here.
Here's another big point, the NGOs, the non-government organizations, I assume all international organizations who are in China would be able to sue over the environmental issue. Explain.
Well, they were referring in the act here, public interest law cases. So this is when an NGO, and most of these are going to be Chinese NGOs. International NGOs won't have standing. But an NGO could bring a case against a coal-fired power plant that has been exceeding pollution emission standards. They don't have to prove that there's harm, but they're saying in the public's interest, this company needs to stop what it's doing. And now what's good with this new law is that judges may be inclined to take these cases. China has had environmental courts for about 6-7 years.
So these are NGOs within China that would go and represent sort of the public's interest and say it's not a criminal case, it's not a criminal, they're asking for money, nope. They're asking for simply a coal plant, for example, to do something different that doesn't harm potentially an entire area.
And the courts the courts will now be potentially more inclined to take the cases because it's in such a foundational law.
Was there anything in the changes that you looked at that you would have liked to have been in?
Well, I think that, in some ways, I mean, a lot of us that do environment, we were happy to see what happened, that this actually came out. It took 4 rounds to get this in. I think that I would have liked to see, I don't know, it's like if I could have a wish. No, actually, in all honesty, I mean, I think.
So you guys are happy with it, basically.
Well,
okay.
I think, but let me take that back. You have to look at the bigger context. That this is just one. This is the foundational law, but it's coming at a time where the government has declared a war on pollution. You're having stricter stricter standards for monitoring, for enforcement of pollution, and this is just going to add an additional hammer, empowering the environmental officials and even the Chinese public. You know why this law had to keep going back and being redone? Because the Chinese public started getting angry that the previous 3 versions were incredibly weak.
Well, look, it's a very big story. It's a current event. It's impacting not millions, but billions of people.
Billions of people.
Jennifer Turner, thank you very much from the Wilson Center.